What is going on YouTube? Chrono here, and welcome back to our free-to-play series. So, today's a very fun episode. Today we get to talk about everything that we have done up until this point, as free-to-play Chrono has reached pretty much what we would consider endgame in NGS at the moment. So, let's go ahead and jump into exactly where we are, what we've done, and why we made the decisions we made way back at the very beginning of this series. So, let's just go ahead and I won't say tear the band-aid off, but jump right into what we have going on today. So, as you guys can see, we're looking at about my right weapon. I am now. Okay, so we're looking at about 3268 battle power. We are level 70 bouncer. We have completed the Stia storyline. As you can see, we do not have any premium, and we can check our purchase history as it is completely empty. So, this has completed our cycle as far as completing all the storyline stuff and setting up our gear and what we got going on. Let's start with gear, because I know gear is always a question for a lot of people. What are we using? So we have 3 weapons currently. Our 3 weapons we've got are the Stia blade, which you guys saw in a previous episode. This was our kind of main weapon going through Stia, and how we have it set up at the moment. It is potential unlock 4. It does have fix a fatale level 3, and we've got nil soul tech 4, alt secreta 3, mel tech doable, and gigas technique 3 on it. Now, as far as what we have currently augmented on this weapon, the things I'd be looking to replace essentially would be alt secreta 3, of course, for 4, and gigas technique 4. We'd be in a very comfortable spot. Our Meltech dual is basically there to replace an Addy capsule. And depending upon what time you would have set up this character, I would have probably grabbed an Addy capsule instead. However, Addy capsules at the moment are going to run you about 1.2 to 2 mil at the moment, depending upon what you're going for. So it just wasn't really a good choice for us in our free-to-play character to start slapping Addy capsules on weapons at the very least. If we were going to do anything, we'd do armor first, because that tends to stick around a bit longer, but we're not going to be doing either. Now, you probably can see here we have some more weapons. So we've got Effulgent and we have Tenebris. Now, these 2 weapons are very good to a point. Tenebris being a fantastic weapon for the event. It is also great for purples, and the Effulgent being a fantastic weapon for purples of the Kavaris region and some of the bosses in Stia. Now, we have this set up with Fix a Fatale 1, but ideally what we're looking for is a Fix a Fatale 3. This was really inexpensive, so I went ahead and grabbed it just for a bit of extra damage as it stands right now. Fix a Fatale is one of the best fixos you can get at the moment, depending upon how you have your weapon set up and what your add-on skills currently are. But pretty commonly, Fatale tends to be one of the better ones, since we aren't high enough on our crit chance to make crit damage really worth. Now, the Tenebris weapon is kind of the exception to the rule, because we have this weapon set up to be our weapon we use against the event enemies. And because we have this here, where this is getting us an extra 20% crit rate, the crit damage ends up being a bit more worth than just the crit chance. So moving into Termina is not as bad with this, but if we were to drop this off of here, we'd be looking to switch this out for Fatale. Now, my main character, I have a Fatale and a Termina. The Termina being, of course, for the event enemies, and I have a Fatale one for when I do purples. But seeing as we're free to play on this character, making 2 separate weapons for this is just not really in the cards. It's too expensive to go into, so having one's fine. And then, of course, when the event ends, we'll, of course, just repurpose this by dropping the Setsune off of this and probably replacing it with, I imagine, what do we have on here? Yeah, probably Gigas Tech would be my guess. So yeah, probably replaces the Gigas Tech 3 and move forward from there. Now, our armor is the FDIS armor. The reason why we didn't upgrade armor for the longest time, we actually rocked that Schwartz armor for such a long time, was because we had planned to get this armor when we got into this region. Now, what we did was we picked up all of the different red box armors. If you guys were unaware, there are specific red boxes in certain locations in Stia. There's one here. There's one all the way over here in this spot here. And then there's also one in the Dresden plant in the center near the Ryuger. I believe it's near Ryuger 2, or no, Ryuger 1 actually, in the center around there. There are red box armors. Now, these red box armors are all very worth, because they do come automatically with Mastery 4 equipped. Now, Mastery 4 is one of the best augments you can have in the game currently. It's usually one of the most expensive, however, it's currently in the event shop, bringing the price down. So if you were someone who was looking to pick up Mastery, now is definitely the time to go ahead and pick it up. Maybe pick it up for later to sell, because the price will probably go up unless they release Mastery 5. However, that's Gamba, so it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to go towards it. It might make you some money in the future, but we'll have to see in case they hold off on Mastery until we see the next major update. As far as armor goes, you guys can see we have our armor set up with Nil Soul, Mastery 4, Technique 4, because Technique 4 honestly is not very expensive, Ulticreta 3, and Meltech Dual. The reason we didn't go with Gigas is because technically the Meltech Dual 4 not only is cheaper, but is more powerful than Gigas 3. It's cheaper than Gigas 4 and more powerful than Gigas 3, so we have that in this slot here. But realistically, we want Ulticreta 4 here, and we want Gigas 4 here. And because we have Mastery, kind of lets us luck out. Essentially what we did is we picked up all 3 of those armors. We sold off 2 of them. Now, if you were in a situation where you wanted to get the best bang for your buck, let's say you're playing any class but Hunter and Fighter, you would sell off the Sheza and the Arga version of this armor because it has melee in it, and you would just pick up the Belta version. The Belta is actually cheaper than the other 2 because for some reason melee is always more expensive than everything else in this game. So you tend to spend more on melee, not only the soul, but the armors that are specific to it. However, most of the cast currently of classes uses range and tech, or can use range and tech to be a bit cheaper. Let's say you're playing Braver, you've got that new skill that allows you to use range effectively for both of your weapons, and Bouncer has that new skill that allows them to use tech effectively for both of their weapons. Now those 2 classes can basically be range and tech, and they don't have to worry as much about augmenting the more expensive melee. Now, again, what I would recommend would be to sell the Sheza, sell the Arga, and pick up 2 more Beltas of the same type, this plus 50. Because the plus 50 variant is going to have Mastery on it. I'll actually show you guys the market really quick. But what I did was I sold the other ones, and I just wanted Sheza, because in the future I may opt to play a melee class. So I'm kind of future-proofing that just a little bit, but we have other plans anyway. Honestly, it's one of those do as I say, not as I do situations, because I wouldn't have recommended grabbing this. So Arga. Now watch me find out that the Argas actually aren't more expensive right now because I said something, but let's go ahead and do a number of augments. 4. You guys can see it in real time. Yes, there you go. The Arga is 1 mil currently. The Sheza is actually down to 600k. That's way lower than when I bought it. I bought this at 800, I believe. And the Belta was actually the cheapest at the time, and Belta's up to 800. Okay, so maybe look at prices on your server and kind of go for whatever the cheapest option is for you. Arga is always going to be the most expensive because, I mean, it also looks like the melee armor being red. And it also comes with might on it. It doesn't really matter that this has any individual stat on it because realistically, these stats to replace them are all incredibly inexpensive. So like, don't worry too much about that. As you can see, Might 4 is 2k a piece. I mean, what? Let's see. Tech 4 is 2k, and then Watch Precision. Precision B1. Precision's actually the most expensive. That's really interesting. I wonder if it's because no one really cares about picking up Precision usually, and that might be why it's more expensive, or if people are posing for the new class that's supposed to be on the way and thinking it's going to be Precision. But yeah, it's actually a good example of, you know, check out the market before you make these decisions. I would have made a different choice had I seen this be the case, but I digress. You guys get the idea, right? We sold 2 armors, we bought 1. Probably thinking, well, you're free to play, how'd you sell 2? Well, I saved, pull it up really quick, I saved my mission pass, shop pass, is it right here? Nope, that's my auto sell. 26, yeah, nope, 24 is where it's at. Yeah, I saved my shop pass for this specific portion. I actually used my shop pass and I put up a ton of stuff for sale. I'm gonna actually show you guys my shop history real quick. As you guys can see, our shop history is was where I was going to look for using this situation. I was ethical. That's it. Our shop history is ethical. Unfortunately, you can't see everything else that's been selling because it's been over across a couple of days, but I have not purchased any of my own stuff. None of my friends has purchased any of my stuff. You'd be able to see their player ID names here because all my friends actually have the personal shop buyer, you know, title thing, because I've shown everyone how to get this title very easily. But if you had the title, you'd be able to see their name here, and you can see this is just purchased by random people who don't have the title. So completely authentic, and you guys can see how much money I've made. Where I made some extra money, which was really nice, was picking up the Stia Note Ds off of the mission pass and selling them. They sold very well. I actually bought this thinking I'd be able to use it or I'd be able to skip over the Meseta cost, which it did not. That's something interesting to learn about. I can make this bigger. No. Okay. Yeah, the potential unlock only skips the material cost, not the Meseta cost, which sucked. I sold all of the Sonic stuff that I had, and then of course we sold the armors. And I sold my Schwarz's armor back for about as much as I paid for them. I paid 50k for them and I got back 45. So we only lost 15k on that cost, which isn't too bad. And then we sold off everything else. We did luck out and get a Tenebrous weapon whenever we were farming. It was a Tenebrous sword with, I think, fixed attack 4. Not worth a whole lot, but made us some money here. The Obsidian weapons that we got from doing the Ordinal Tower, we sold those off as well. Got an extra 100k here, and we sold off our Evil Coat blade that we had set up. That was multi-weapon for about 200k. The multi-weapon did cost us quite a bit, so that kind of sucked, but it is better than nothing. We do get some money back on that because we're not going to be using that weapon for anything at all. It's not going to be useful for anything, so I'm not too worried about that. But as you can see, we've got a good set of armor. We have a solid 84% potency. Now it's not super high, but it is also stable because we also have potency floor with having Ultra Credit and Mastery, both very good augments that I highly recommend you don't skip over. People tend to like to go all in on potency and wonder why they still get smashed when it comes to damage, why they can't keep up with a lot of other people, and it's because, yeah, your crit's going to be much higher than mine, like if you do crit, but I also have more consistent damage across the board, which ends up averaging out to being more damage overall, which is why I'm going to smash something a bit faster than you. Now, on average, you might luck out. Maybe you have insane RNG and you always get really good crits and your potency is higher, and that does work out for you, but realistically, the best in slot setup is not actually all in on potency. It is a mix of potency and potency floor, and I would highly recommend not skipping over that. That does go over all of our gear. We can talk about like just our progression overall and what we did in each of the zones really quick. So for Alio, all we did was finish the storyline, then went around and grabbed all of the individual cocoons and towers, got all of our skill points, and then went ahead and moved forward. In the Alio region, we actually had a quest, or not quest, but we had a bunch of weapons and armors given to us. The Renesia gear, which was super easy to use to help us progress. Didn't really cost us very much. We augmented it very little to jump directly into the Redum series. Now, Redum, there was a quest that gave us a set of armor. We didn't use it. They gave us a weapon that we ended up using eventually. We didn't use it immediately, but we did end up using it eventually, and we set it up, and it was very useful for us to get past a few battle power caps, which we talked about in the series. But that was the only thing we really upgraded in the Redum series. Again, we just did the storyline, we got our cocoons, all our towers, and we got all of our skill points and then applied them. I'm pretty sure we got everything right. Yeah, we got everything. Awesome. So moving into Kavaris was the first time we ran into a bit of a roadblock. In Kavaris, we had some skill points that we could grab, and it was helpful there. We did have some battle power, gates to hit. There was a quest in Central City moving into Kavaris that jumped us up to like level 40-ish, 42. But we did still run into some issues, so we had to make sure that we were, we were properly prepared, and we upgraded to our Christia weapon. This is where this actually happened. The Christia sword, or the Christia blade, actually pushed us up very, very high into the Stia region battle power that we needed, so we got that taken care of. We took care of knocking out all of our towers and our cocoons, and then I applied all of that into our battle power and got pretty comfortable moving into Stia. We did a bit of farming. We did hit up Alnoth just a little bit, and we got some farming done, and we ended up hitting, I think, level 65 before we touched Stia. Realistically, we would have been comfortable at 63, but I farmed for an hour because I had boosts going for an hour and wanted to finish that up. Moving into Stia, we simply used the armor we had. We were still using our Schwarz's armor, funny enough. This is where we bought the Schwarz's armor, was in Kavaris. We used our Schwarz's armor all the way through Stia, along with our Christia blade. I believe it was only potential unlocked level 2 at plus 50, and it only had the base weapon. We didn't have it multi-weapon, so it was a little bit difficult to push through that way. It is going to be a bit harder, but if you're comfortable with your level of skill, you shouldn't have too much difficulty, and sometimes it might just take you a little bit longer, and that's okay. Not to worry too much about that. So we were able to push the story, finish that up, and then we went ahead and grabbed all of our skill points, everything, went ahead and applied all of that, got all the battle power we could, and then went around and grabbed all of our red box armor. After that, we went ahead and popped our first we popped our one and only 3-day shop pass, put everything up for sale, went around and collected, of course, the what is it called over here in I want to say, is it over here? Yeah, it's the Sagan Mountain Road East. Went ahead and collected the Meseta items here. We collected them over in Alio, and then we collected them in Kavaris each day to make sure that we had a decent amount of Meseta coming in. It wasn't a ton, but it was a bit. and we were able to go ahead and make sure we made enough money to push past what we needed. I want to say we made roughly somewhere between 3, 4, maybe 4 to 5 mil roughly whenever we went into this process. Now, when we were in the Stia region, we did do one session of farming that was super awesome. We popped all of our buffs. We also popped a 1 hour use of auto sale. We turned everything on except for the ability to auto sell fixed items. So if I can show you guys really quick, what we went ahead and did is we popped into auto sell. We turned everything on, even 8 stars. We disabled do not sell with preset skills or color variants, because sometimes these do sell pretty well. Did every piece of armor as well. Also, again, presets not sell. We had cashable items on, and we had all of this turned on as well. What this did was give us a ton of Meseta intake, and because we had Meseta buffs at the time, it gave us a bunch of money. We basically made about a mil in that 1 hour of farming with all of our buffs going, which was super nice. That's where we got that Tenebris sword, and we were able to make a bit of extra money that way. With all of that, we were able to set up all of our weapons, basically all of our armor. So we have all of our weapons more or less set up, and all of our armor more or less set up. So looking at the future of this character and what I plan to do with him, it's gonna be one of two things. I'm pretty comfortable with my armor, but I may slowly pick up the better gear. So I may slowly pick up, what is it called? Let's pop over here and we can see it, because it's always up here. Yeah, the Eclair armor. We may slowly pick up Eclair armor and then augment it, because it is going to be stronger. I actually haven't checked to see what a cheap Eclair augment armor setup would be versus what my current setup is, because if a cheap augment armor setup is going to be better, then it's going to be better for me to go ahead and set this up over time and then go ahead and sell my other armor to make some money back off of it. The big thing is mastery right now is super low in its cost, like I mentioned beforehand, because it is in the event shop. So we'll pick up the 10 masters from the event shop and probably sit on those to sell for later, just because, I mean, this character, realistically, getting mastery is not going to be something we're going to do on this character unless it's super easy, or it's more or less free. So I'm going to make that very clear. You don't always have to go for the absolute best in slot armor. You can get something that's going to be just good and perform very well. This is going to be the gear that we use to go into doing our purple, because we do plan to do a purple as well. I want to see how this character stacks up versus my usual character. We'll probably do some side by side and see how that works out. So just keep that in mind. Where I'm going to try to do this with a few friends that are, kind of limited on their gear. So I might help them, pay for that limited gear, since I'm asking them to help me do this portion of the challenge. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. As far as weapons, we do still need to make one more weapon, which you see in this one slot here. We will be making our Archiclophus weapon. Now we're pretty close on what we need for the Clophus, so let's pop over here really quick. As you can see, we have 159 Infernium, which we'll definitely get the last bit of Infernium we need, because we haven't collected any of our where is it? We haven't collected any of our randomite at all yet, so we're gonna be collecting all of our randomite, as well as there is a secret shop. If you guys have been keeping up with the YouTube series, Xiami has a secret shop that has another 50 Infernium in it. So we will definitely get the Infernium that we need to go ahead and make our weapon. It's just going to be a conversation of when we go do that process. And I plan to do some Infernium gathering with you guys in the next video. So you guys will see that, and we'll start getting our weapon put together. And I'll probably do a video where I put the weapon together as well, show you how that process goes too. That's pretty much it for what weapons we're going to be setting up moving forward. I'll probably be sitting on these 4 weapons for quite some time. We may slowly swap out some things if it is, that's not too expensive. I don't want to break the bank on making minor gains, right? Like Gigas Tech, it's a 0.5 increase on each of these, and I don't want to break the bank on getting these if it's not going to be worth it for me. Something like Alt Secreta is pretty inexpensive, so I might, go in on that. That's not too bad. But this Gigas Tech 4s can be kind of expensive, so we may RNG a couple of those and see how far we get, but that's going to be our slow build up towards getting even better armor. That's pretty much it though. That covers everything for this character. And honestly, I guess my final thoughts on the whole free-to-play thing and how this has been moving forward. This isn't like my final thoughts all the way, because I haven't done all my challenges and things like that, but how it's been to progress has not been too bad. There have been some pain points. A big one for me was potential unlocks. They're far too expensive. With the breakneck speed you're able to go through this game, and how they allow you to get through the first 2 regions so easily, getting what felt like almost like brick walled in the Kavaris region felt pretty bad. Things were really expensive, and I wasn't a huge fan of that, because realistically speaking, we almost basically got into the other regions for free. we had access to these Renesia weapons, which made things very easy because unlocking potentials didn't cost anything. They were completely free. And they went up to level 5 because of like some earlier stuff, right? Since you're able to upgrade, I think, the plus 50, we're able to get these potentials to level 5, which meant we were able to get some extra battle power to push ourselves forward. So dealing with that made it almost like hitting a brick wall when we got to somewhere where we had to spend money. Now, it isn't unreasonable to have someone farm to make money to be able to unlock these, but when you're used to like the breakneck speed of flying through these two regions, being able to explore everything, doing your story, getting through these regions, not feeling like you're hard locked or stuck, I can see how there'd be a bit of an issue for some people in the Kavaris region where they feel like they're kind of locked up for a little bit, right? Where I saw people doing urgent quests in the Kavaris region, I'm like, why would you be here? Why would you not just be in Stia? Now, you could just level up to beat those battle power caps and do a bit of gear upgrading, just like slight bits of gear upgrading, but I wanted to do as little leveling as possible. I did do some leveling here in the Kavaris camp because there are some pretty good side quests, some that just give you experience for doing the cocoons in the towers, which I recommend picking those ones up because it's like an autocomplete if you've already done them, which is super nice. Some of them that just require you to go to certain places and then just do a bit of gathering, it's also really, really easy too. But it did feel kind of bad, and I really would like for that specific spot to be adjusted because realistically speaking, you don't need to worry too much about gearing up heavily while going through the story. It's mostly at endgame where you want to make your big, gear gains because things aren't really that difficult. It's when we hit, doing the current urgent quests or fighting gigas or, going into doing, purples or something along those lines where your gear starts to matter a bit more. Even then, it wasn't really, end of the world. Another big issue that I ran into was food items. Again, if you're going through this at breakneck speed, you aren't really stopping to gather a ton of stuff when you're going through. What I'd recommend is if you notice you're picking up specific food items, like let's say crisp items, like I knew I found crisp fruit in South Alio. I just marked this area as crisp fruit to let me know, hey, look, grab fruit while you're here. Crisp is the type of food that you want realistically. So knowing what enemies, drop crisp meat that you can go ahead and kill as you're running past them, crisp seafood as you can gather it, those things are going to be super helpful to you that you can just pick these up very quickly each day as you're moving through, just getting, doing your dailies and stuff like that. Subclass leveling is not really super important. Doesn't matter what your subclass is, so it just levels on its own. If you want to level a bunch of classes at one time, then hey, just set your subclass to whatever. We weren't really subclass dependent as we went through the leveling process since we had a Christia weapon that made life easy for us. If you're playing a class that requires a multi-weapon, that is way too expensive during the leveling process. Again, it's hard pressed to ask someone to grind to make a multi-weapon when they're going to be replacing it. Now, when I was making my Christia weapon, it didn't feel as bad because I knew I was going to use this moving forward, but everything else beforehand just felt pretty terrible. And it does suck whenever you decide that you want to go ahead and upgrade, knowing that you spent almost, 700k on making a multi-weapon. Now 700k is for the 7 stars, but like you're spending 400, 500, 600k on making a multi-weapon or potential unlocks. I said 700k, I'm sorry, for multi-weapon I meant potential unlocks, but when you're making a multi-weapon and doing potential unlocks for lower tier weapons, you're spending a ton of money. It just feels really bad. So I would say the daily intake of Meseta versus how much you're asked to spend on upgrading, trying to catch up to the region, just kind of felt bad. However, once you reach the current, the current tier, the level upgrading, the process that you're going through isn't really that difficult. In Stia, I'm already pretty much caught up on the gear that I want to have, and I can slowly upgrade and not worry about too much. And by the time the next region would come out, which would be 6 months from now, I'd be in a pretty comfortable spot to go ahead and upgrade my weapon again. Now, that's because I'm playing one class. If I'm someone who plays multiple classes, it might become a little bit more difficult. But realistically speaking, it's not asking for a whole bunch from what you actually make now. I think that's more of a conversation to have with the level progression process, where the Renesia weapons did really, really well in the earlier regions. Moving forward, maybe something in the Stia, in the Kavaris step could be a bit better. That might be being looked at right now. We're not 100% sure. It looks like they sort of got a little bit of it in the Redum step where they gave us the evil coat weapons, and they gave us mostly what we needed. But the potential unlocks, man, are brutal, and I really feel like that's something that needs to be addressed because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel fun. Again, not that it's unreasonable at end game, but going through the leveling process, it is not easy. And especially when you're being asked to farm, people aren't always in these farming zones to farm. It can be kind of difficult. Right now, it's a little easier because of Redum Alnoth is being farmed by basically everyone for points. But if there's no event going on, it makes your life much more difficult. That's pretty much it, guys. That's all I wanted to talk with you guys about today. It's a little bit of a longer video. We didn't do a whole lot, but you know, the next video we're going to be going over grabbing all of our randomite. I'm going to show you guys a map for that, and then of course completing a couple of side tasks here and there. The future of free-to-play Chrono is looking pretty bright. He has everything he needs, and he's going to be doing some pretty fun stuff. So stay tuned. I'm not sure exactly what challenges we're going to be going into with this character, but I'm going to be deciding it with you guys. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know if there's anything you want to know about in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Peace out.